today we'll continue this journey through the wheel of life, and we'll jump right in. But before we jump in, Phuntsok, do you want to answer some questions that we didn't get to last time? There was a question from Lorella that we never got to. Is Lorella here?
Yes, let's answer some of the questions.
Yes, I'm here.
Ah.
And so you said the potential is the potential for something to happen, and that is based on you believe that it's going to happen and you're going to make it happen. But my
no,
question is like,
not that you believe it's going to happen.
Uncreate.
Yeah, you have a conviction.
Mm-hmm.
The conviction creates a potential. It's not that you have a conviction that something will make something happen, and then that conviction makes it happen. But rather, in order for there to be a potential, there has to be not a conviction in the potential, but rather any conviction. Whatever the conviction you have, the mere fact that you have this potential, the mere fact that you have this conviction creates a potential for something. The result of that potential may not necessarily be in line with what you are believing. Like, if I have a strong belief that, way back then in India, it is said that there used to be this group of people who believe that with strong conviction, they jump from a high cliff, and if they land perfectly on their heads, and then they have a trishula, a trident, and if the trident pierce them exactly at the crown chakra, they will reach nirvana.
Top of the head, yeah.
Yeah, that they have that conviction. It led them to an action, but doesn't mean that the result that they want is what they were having a conviction about. It's not because they were believing.
We're gonna see exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then my question continues is like how to do the opposite, like you have the potential to create, but okay, so not something that you already create, how to uncreate it.
Oh, yeah. So you have the potential for something to happen. It's not happening yet. The potential is still there. Is there a way for you to offset this potential so it doesn't bring about what it has the potential to create? Yes, there's something you can do to stop the potential.
Exactly.
There is something you can do. And sometimes we do this, we can do this consciously, where we consciously engage in an action that stops the potential from bringing about a result. And sometimes unconsciously, we may do something that acts against a potential that stops it from producing its result, its potential result. Like it is said, like, for example, when we get angry and we act out of anger, that anger destroys the potential for certain potentials of goodness, for example. So that's why some of these thoughts some of these states of mind are considered to be poisonous, because holding them and acting from them, they destroy our capacity for happiness. So that's something that we do. It's not like we have the intention, oh, I want to destroy my potential for happiness. Let me get angry, right? We don't do that. But something happens, we get angry, oops, that anger, you already did it. Now it destroyed the potential for some kind of happiness. And also, we can also do this consciously, where we in alignment with some kind of wisdom, we act, and that kind of action acts against a potential that could have been a potential for some unwanted result.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. All right. We have to get going because there's someone who's attending this like at 2 o'clock in the morning or something. And it was his birthday like a couple of days ago. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Okay, all right. So let's get started, shall we? I have to say I apologize and I commend you on your patience. I listened to one of my recordings and I said, oh my goodness, I would never listen to that guy. Can't stand his voice. So I commend you for your patience, for listening to this voice. And I'll, knowing that I'm gonna try to make some sort of change, but I can't guarantee it, but I'm gonna try, okay? The last meditation that we did was, believe it or not, it's supposed to be an advanced meditation, even though it was so simple. Interestingly enough, the more advanced the meditations you get involved with, the simpler they are. Because now that you have you're expected to have some sort of command over your capacity to hold your attention. When the object is very simple, when the process is very simple, it's easier for our habit of distraction to be overpowered and we become easily distracted. That's why in the beginning, our meditations are somewhat elaborate. So to keep our minds and our attention busy. It's like, you give a child something very colorful so they can be distracted with that, so they don't have to get too much into trouble. Okay. So, and I myself, I take into sort of like almost like a given, everyone who's attending this has a degree of maturity. And there are certain things that I will not bother to explain to you. Certain things about morality, like don't be bad, be good. I'm not going to tell you this kind of nonsense, okay? That's something that you already have a sense of already. But rather the science of goodness, the science of badness, whatever that may be, we'll dive into that. And just like these 12 links of dependent origination that we are going over, these 12 links are not foreign to you, but rather they are somewhere in your unconscious. And I'm hoping to extract them to show you, yes, this is how you're operating. After all, if you're here, if you're having experiences, you've gone through the 12 links. So they're already there present, but mainly this is pointing to what's already there. Okay, this is not, the 12 links is not something that anyone created to help you, but rather pointing to the very process, the very dynamic involved in our experiences. That's how we have to consider them to be. If something doesn't sound quite right to you, and then you just need to have it further explained in such a way so that it can point to what you already know, right? And sorry if I'm going to be saying, right, okay, yeah. I'm trying to stop that, but give me some time, okay? Okay, so let's begin with a meditation. And the meditation that we're going to do is the same as we did last time. It's a very simple meditation, and be very careful for your attention to be taken away through distraction. And here, distraction doesn't mean that something appears to your awareness, but rather distraction is you're no longer aware of what is present in your field of awareness. Here, that's what distraction means. And the way to not allow yourself to go into some sort of daydreaming where you're not aware of what you are aware of is to hold a deep curiosity about whatever is happening, whatever is appearing to any one of your senses, whether it's mental consciousness in terms of thoughts and ideas that come up, associations, or things that come through your outer 5 senses, or things that come through your mental consciousness that are related to your outer consciousness, like 5 consciousness, like an inner sound or an inner vision or something like that, okay? Not necessarily a specific thought, an idea, but just an image or a thought, but it's not coming from outside. So whatever it is that is appearing, whether through your outer senses, through your inner senses, you maintain a deep curiosity about the underlying nature of it. not with a curiosity in a sense of, I wish to know what's underneath, but rather with a sense of awe. It is the fundamental nature. It is emptiness that I'm seeing right now, appearing as the sound, appearing as this image, appearing as this thought, appearing as this image. And you want to step back rather than just only see the outer appearance of the emptiness. You want to have a curiosity about the emptiness itself, but not in a sense of rejecting what emptiness is giving to you. Okay, have a sense of wonder and awe about everything that is happening, whether it is pleasant, whether it is unpleasant, whether it is neutral. That's the meditation. And I'm going to be leaving you alone for about 15 minutes while you try to get acquainted and keep stepping back. The way you step back is to simply be aware, relax, and as you relax, notice your consciousness sort of unraveling a more subtle layer. With every breath, have the conviction that a new, more subtle layer has appeared. And you may not be aware of the layers from 1 to 2 because they're so close to each other. But by the time you get to 10, because you are maintaining awareness of what's happening between 1 and 2, when it's 10, you will notice the real difference. Otherwise, 10 will happen and you will not be much aware of the vast difference, okay? So know that whatever is appearing to you now is more subtle than what appeared to you a second ago, okay? Even though it appears to be the same thing. So keep that attitude, keep relaxing, keep stepping back. Like you want to step back from just appearance, step back from mere appearance, step back from mere appearance, and eventually reveal the vast underlying fundamental. All right. So let's begin. Make sure you're comfortable. Have a clear intention in your mind that you're going to meditate. Hold that in your mind. Allow this intention to be communicated to your body. Allow the physicality of the body to respond, the energetic aspect of the body to respond. Allow the emotional self to respond. Feel they're responsive. Then staying somewhat aware of them, not grasping, not pushing away. Look for the signs that your body is already beginning to enter meditation, and try to stay with the sign without pushing away the other signs, but be more curious to be aware of the signs of meditation. The calm that is beginning to happen in the body, physically, energetically. The calm that is beginning to happen with the breath. Whatever measure of calm that is beginning to happen in the mind. You may not be aware of them, but wherever you are aware of any of that or any of this, just be aware. And with that, we are going to sign the conviction to fully enter through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. Through the mouth, breathe out. And as you breathe out, let go, let go, let go in the body, let go physically, let go energetically, let go, let go, let go in the mind, let go. Stay in that momentum of letting go, stay in that momentum of letting go. And as you stay in that momentum of letting go, begin to notice the signs slowly arising in the body, slowly arising energetically, slowly arising in the breath and the mind, and rejoice upon witnessing them, the calming, the pleasantness, and the inner sensations arising within the mind, knowing that these inner sensations are outward signs of the clarifying of the mind, the luminosity appearing, starting to appear in the mind, and rejoice. And gently begin with your attention loose. Your attention is free. It can be aware of whatever it wishes to be aware of. You're not going to force it to be aware of just one thing while forcing it not to be aware of other things that are present. So, and rest in that sense of freedom that you've given your mind, you've given your attention. And be particularly aware of the calming in the body with the legs. Rejoice in the torso that is upright, giving you a sense of attentiveness. Be aware of the signs in the arms with the shoulders relaxed, the hands resting. Rejoice as you notice the signs in the centered head and neck. Rejoice noticing the signs in the mouth, teeth, tongue. In the restful muscles of the face and forehead. Rejoice as you notice the signs in the soft resting of the eyes. The eyes can be completely closed if that's resting for you, slightly opened, halfway open, or even fully open. Gently bring attention to the space between your eyebrows without forcing your mind to be there, without rejecting any other sensations, any other perceptions. Just include that in the field of your awareness. Noticing the signs that you are indeed touching the meditative state, the calm, the pleasantness, the inner sensations pointing to clarity, radiance, the measure of focus, rejoice. Feeling the sensation in the forehead. Stabilize this journey with a nice 3 full breath. Gently through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. Through the mouth, release. And as you release, let yourself go again, let yourself go. As you let yourself go, notice the signs enhancing, the calm enhancing, the pleasantness enhancing, rejoice. Stay in the depth, just by continuously be aware of the depth, the new level of calm, the new level of pleasantness, the new level of clarity and radiance through either the loudness or the vividness of the experiences that are appearing. Stay with that. And for the second time, through the nose, breathe in fully, gently. And again, release. And as you release, again, notice yourself going deeper into the calm, rejoice, deeper into the pleasantness, rejoice, deeper into the clarity, radiance, focus, rejoice. Staying in that depth for the third time, another full breath, gently, fully through the nose. And through the mouth, let's go. And notice the new depth that you've reached, even if it's 0.001%, enhancement in the calm, in the body, energetically, or in the breath, or in the mind, rejoice. This encourages this to continue. And perhaps something is appearing, a sensation has appeared in the space between your eyebrows. Consider that to be the presence of your potential. And towards that potential, have a deep sense of respect, trust, and gratitude. Right here, right now, in this moment, amongst all the experiences, there's the potential for you to directly experience truth. Allow that aspect of potential to come to the surface by simply relaxing. And let your attention, your awareness be loose. You're not rejecting anything. You're not grasping onto anything. If what is appearing to vision, whether it's inner vision or to your eyes, the physical eyes, if that is more interesting to you, then just be aware of vision. If what you're hearing is more interesting, then just be aware of hearing. If it's an inner sensation, if it's mentation, if it's reasoning taking place, whatever is happening that seems to have a sense of attraction, pulling your attention towards it. Do not resist. Don't think of it as distraction, but rather approach it with a curiosity, knowing that you are witnessing something arising from fundamental nature. As a matter of fact, it is fundamental nature itself that is appearing as this vision, that is appearing as the sound, that is appearing as these mentation, these capacities. And once you're able to hold that sense of curiosity, not rejecting and knowing that this very appearances of all these things, that's emptiness. That's the true nature of reality. Taking on this appearance of whatever is appearing to your eyes, to your ears, to your nose, to your mind, to your inner sensations. And with that, when you breathe out or when you breathe in, whichever direction you wish to do this, or with both, like if you're doing with the exhalation, when you breathe out, have a sense of stepping back with that curiosity. This is the field of infinite potential, right here, right now. This is clear luminosity appearing right here, right now. You keep stepping back. Relax. Step back and know that as soon as you have that sense of stepping back, even though it appears to be the same thing, this is actually a more subtle version of it. And keep doing this. Step back, keep stepping back. Now bring awareness to mainly the mind itself that is meditating. And acknowledge the depth that you have reached. Yes, you have reached a certain depth. Acknowledge that by noticing the measure to which your body, your mind, energetically, your breath, it's calm. To what degree there is some sense of pleasantness. To what degree there is some sense of clarity and vividness to perception, experience. To the degree to which the mind is collected, focused. Noticing any measure of these, any combination of these, rejoice. Reward the mind, reward yourself. Now make the intention to arise from the meditation. With that intention to arise, take a nice deep breath. And through the mouth, breathe out. And as you breathe out, now consciously be aware that you are now encountering the world with a mind that is not now in meditation. Notice the feeling of your body. Notice the sounds. Notice what you're seeing, take time, colors, shapes, shadows, light. Okay. All right, now you can sit in a way that you feel very comfortable, if you're not already comfortable. I'm going to try to go through all 12 today so that we can go to the other possible ways of understanding the 12 links of dependent, the other presentations of the 12 links of dependent origination next time we meet, and also to finally arrive at how is this presented in the secret way, and how is this, what is the reverse of this? The 12 links of dependent origination, what is it that it is speaking about? Ultimately speaking about what are the conditions, what are the causes, what are the originating factors for experiences that are connected to suffering. and then looking at everything that are linked to it. And these are the 12. That gives you the 12 links of dependent origination. And when one frees oneself from this kind of causation, this kind of link, when the links are broken, then one reaches freedom. Then that person is called, one way of defining the person who has freed themselves of this, that person is called a destroyer of the wheel. Ara also means the wheel of life, the wheel of suffering. And hatta means the destroyer. So arahatta, arahat, the destroyer of the wheel. Okay, eventually you want to get to that point. And don't hesitate. Some of us hesitate when we are destroying the wheel of suffering, when you hear the wheel of life, the wheel of samsara, because we think that, wait a minute, that means we no longer have fun. We don't want to destroy the wheel if we're gonna stop having fun, but rather is destroying the compulsions that are involved in where we are forced to experience suffering in existence. And to break that means we break that compulsion where we continue to exist, but we do no longer have to experience suffering. Okay. Pain and suffering are two different things. You can have pain and not have suffering. They're not mutually inclusive of each other. You can have pain and not suffer, okay? But rather focusing on suffering. There is a sutta where one of the disciples of the Buddha asked him, how are you in your 80-year-old body? And the Buddha said, yeah, I feel pain in my joints sometimes, but the Buddha doesn't suffer from this pain. Okay. And so being free from the wheel doesn't mean being free from pain, but rather being free from the dysfunctional way of relating to this just data that we call pain. No longer relating to it in a dysfunctional way where we experience it as pain. We just see it as data. My body is in this condition and it's sending me messages. If I can do something about it, I do something about it. If there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can do. I don't have to suffer because of that. Okay. Last time we talked about ignorance, the first and second. So we're going to go through how the Buddha presented them in the very first place, from 1 to 12, and how each one of them is connected to each other. Simply saying, and unfortunately, that's what that's how they are presented from 1 to 12. They say, yeah, ignorance leads to immature karma leads to consciousness leads to name and form, and so on and so forth. So just someone saying, or they're just by adding the word, or they're linked, without saying, well, how they're linked. How can you present them to me to show me that they are linked? It's not really going to help you. And that's why people easily forget the 12 links of dependent origination teaching, because it doesn't seem to connect with our lives. So the first link is telling us that misunderstanding is not some passive thing happening in your mind. Not knowing is not just some passive thing in your mind, but rather it is an active agent. Its function is to create potential. And it's not simply you're thinking about something, you're wishing to believe something, but rather a certain degree of conviction about our experiences. And when that conviction is not in alignment with the nature of these experiences that we have, it's not in alignment, but there is this conviction. The conviction will propel us to act. And this is something that we all know. We know this well, very, very well. when someone explains something to you that you don't understand and you're interested in it, what do? You seek knowledge of it. Because you know the knowing of it will propel you to be able to engage in whatever manner of engagement you need to engage, so that you can have that wish you want to experience. So this is something that we know from deep within us. That's why we seek knowledge. And we understand that not knowing something isn't just a passive thing that doesn't do anything. It's not simply, I don't know the true nature of reality, but rather there is a conviction, and this conviction lies within the unconscious. That it is not at the surface of our conscious awareness. In fact, the path towards wisdom, the first thing that we need to do, the first realization we need to have, is to realize how we are mistaking things. And take this out of the realm of just pure philosophy. Bring this into your very life as it is. The reason that whatever experience that you have, if it is an unpleasant experience that you wish to no longer experience in the future, the process, the path of actually arriving at a point where we no longer have these unpleasant, unwanted experiences, the first part is to first realize I am not where I want to be, one. And then towards arriving at wholeness, toward arriving at getting rid of these unwanted experiences, there is, what conviction am I holding on to that is nurturing this experience that I don't want? Because I'm convinced my sister is the root of my problems, that conviction will propel me to act in ways that I may not want to act, but I will act certain ways. And these actions will bring about results, will bring about experiences. Now, if these experiences are unpleasant, I have to, the path of healing, the path of being able to get rid of these experiences is to first come to realize I am holding a conviction in my mind that my sister is this way and that way. Only then can I sort of distance myself, begin to distance myself from this conviction, so that it will no longer have the power that it has over me to make me act and behave compulsively in a certain way. So don't think of ignorance as a passive thing, but rather it is the most dangerous thing to exist in the mind of any mind stream. The most dangerous thing to exist in any mind. Okay? It is not merely, I don't know how to get to the moon. That doesn't affect me. Okay? But rather the experiences that I'm having here and now, there's a conviction holding me to these experiences that is propelling me to act a certain way. And we know this when there are certain things that we want to have. There are certain experiences that we want to have. And sometimes we may even have a sense of, these are the things that I'm doing that keeps me connected to these unwanted experiences. And yet we find ourselves powerless from being able to stop ourselves from acting in these ways. Why is that? What is propelling us to act even though we don't want to act in these ways? I don't want to say those kinds of things, and yet I'm propelled to say them. I don't want to respond in those kinds of ways, and yet I'm propelled to respond in these ways. Why is that? What is at the root of these things? It is this conviction. And don't think of conviction as simply some sort of positive thing, like if you're convinced you can fly, then you can fly. I'm not talking about that kind of magical thinking, okay? I'm talking about real convictions, not superficial convictions. That is, we would like to have certain convictions. In fact, if indeed you can convince yourself you can fly, and that conviction is real, not superficial, you will fly. When you get to the higher levels of concentration, that's exactly what they are, exercising conscious convictions. Now that your mind is no longer a vast mystery to you, your mind, the mechanism of the mind is open to you, and you can sort of see in the mind where the seat of conviction resides, and now you can consciously, deliberately place convictions in there, and you will witness how these convictions are creating experiences. Just a little side note, and not that for you to go try it, okay? Don't go stand on top of a building and tell communities, I can fly, I can fly, I can fly, and then jump, okay? This doesn't work that way. Because at the real seat, at the place in the mind where convictions reside, there's the conviction, I can't fly. Just on the surface repeating, I can fly, I can fly, I can fly, is not what removes that conviction. Something else has to take place to remove that conviction. And when you can really, realistically replace that conviction, then whatever your conviction you place in there will work. This is the principle, the underlying principle that makes Tantra works, that makes Tantra work. But we train at the replacing, getting accustomed to holding a certain conviction, but it's not a conviction that has reached the place where it actually can create something, but it's not real conviction. It's just a wishing, you could say. I am. And eventually it reaches the level of conviction where conviction really lies. And then you will see results of that. And the little side note that I wanted to make, once you've mastered calm abiding, once you've mastered shinē, once you've mastered concentration, where your mind is actually no longer in the desire realm, but your mind is actually in deep levels of concentration, where you're able to sort of have a visceral knowledge of this is my mind. You have a visceral sense of it. These are the things I can, a sense of, let me move this, let me move that in the mind. Let me move the capacity to see, and then seeing is moved. Let me enhance hearing. There is hearing, let me enhance it. And you enhance hearing. You witness yourself consciously interacting with these different functions of the mind. When you're at that level, the way to advance, the way to get rid of very strong ignorance is to now begin to consciously supplant conviction, where you say, I can walk on water. And you place that conviction where it's supposed to be, and then you see yourself walking on water. And at that level, when you're witnessing yourself actually walking on water, the ignorance that told you water is this way and in no other way, now you're smashing that ignorance because you are directly witnessing the opposite of it. So this was a little side note about the power of holding, about the conviction that is driving our experiences. Okay, it's not mere surface not knowing. It's not mere surface belief, but rather deep conviction. That is that within our mind that is driving our experiences uncontrollably. That's what I'm referring to as conviction. And that's what they're referring to here as ignorance. And wherever there is ignorance, it creates potential for experience. Okay? And it doesn't mean that I have convinced, I give you the example of conviction, supplant the conviction that I can walk on water, and then you see yourself walking on water. You could, here, the connection here is I have a misunderstanding of the true nature of reality. And this misunderstanding of the nature of reality, I'm holding it as a conviction. Like, I'll give you a very bad example, in a sense that it's not pleasant. Someone is convinced that the people in that pizza store are doing evil things to children. They are convinced. That conviction spurs them, they have to act, and they go act. What action do they do? Since you are evil, what do you do to evil? You must stop it. So they act to try to stop evil. But that conviction is based on misunderstanding. But it doesn't really matter if your conviction is based on misunderstanding or if it's based on right understanding, it will cause a potential for action. Okay. What they refer to as a second link, the formation or immature karma, as my teacher defines it, and which is more how the Tibetans understand it, that it creates a potential for an experience, for an ultimate result. It doesn't mean that as soon as you hold a conviction of some sort that you're forced to have some sort of immediate experience, but rather it creates a potential for a certain kind of experience. Immature karma as a potential, and within it is everything that is necessary for the experience. If the experience is an experience that happens only at the level of mind, for example, then everything necessary, the kind of mind that you need, the kind of convictions that you need, everything that is necessary for that kind of mental experience is part of that potential. It's wrapped up in that potential. If it is something to be experienced in the physical world, you could say the kind of physical world, the kind of physical, the kind of being, the kind of materiality, the kind of everything that you need to have that experience are in that potential. Okay. When the experience, when the engagement out of that conviction, we act and a potential is created. When the result, the possible result of this, when the possible result of this potential is something that you can say would be a pleasant experience, it's called virtuous. But it is still stained by this misunderstanding. But the result will be some sort of pleasant experience. Okay. When the potential that is there, when its possible result, possible experience is an unpleasant experience, it is said to be non-virtuous. Okay. So immature karma that is virtuous, immature karma that is non-virtuous. And there's a kind of immature karma that has a very strange name. It's called unshifting. Unshifting in the sense that it is something beyond, it will give a definite, the other ones, the virtuous karma or the non-virtuous karma can take place in in a varieties of ways. Like, for example, you may not believe this, but just take it as an example. You have the karma, which is a bad karma, to be born as a dog. But you have the virtue to be born in a luxurious place. So you're a dog who lives in a luxurious place. You don't have the suffering of a dog who's running in the streets, who's being kicked by little kids, who has to worry about eating, where he's going to get his next food. But you're a dog, but you happen to live in a luxurious place. Your food is always there waiting for you. You actually have someone who walks you to help you to poop, to help you to pee. And that person picks up your poo for you. See, that's a nice life for that dog, right? So that's the kind of experiences that you can have with somewhat mixed. So it's shifting. So when the kind of potential, the result is something, it's really connected to some sort of higher experience, more connected to immaterial experiences. These are the ones that are called shifting, okay? And as far as these are concerned, they may not necessarily be of concern to you about whether I'm going to be born as a dog, or I'm going to be born as a fly or a fish, or even a lot of Buddhists don't even accept that, okay, or not convinced about that, okay. But that's not the point. The point is the potential for your experience is the conviction that we have, and especially the conviction is activated when we act from it. When we act from the conviction, we activate it, and it produces a potential. Okay, this is what you might call like the DNA. For example, it creates the DNA. It creates the code for an experience. When you take the DNA by itself, it is not the experience, but only when the DNA has produced whatever it produced, then the experience, right? Now this potential, in extension to this potential, that's the third link, that means it creates a field of what kind of awareness you're going to have. Basically, how are you going to see the world? What kind of world is going to appear to you? You see how dangerous ignorance is? That it is a condition that eventually determines how you are going to see the world. And how you're going to see the world depends on the kind of consciousness that you have. And you've witnessed this in your own experience, where you could say someone having a certain kind of consciousness goes through the world, and they say the world is a place that creates anger within them. And they can be walking through the same neighborhood as you are walking through them because of their consciousness. That their consciousness is conditioned to perceive the world a certain way. And this kind of consciousness is originating from the kind of potential created through activating our ignorance in certain ways. Okay? What you call that? The evolutionary biology. In evolutionary biology, you can understand that the consciousness within a dog and the consciousness within a human being are slightly different. They are both aware, but the consciousness is conditioned in such a way that the dog sees the world a certain way, that human beings see the world a certain way because of their conditioned consciousness. So that means the consciousness that we have is not fixed. and it can expand. And you may have experienced some of it in the meditation that we just did. As you were, perhaps if you had your eyes were open, the very colors that you are seeing started to appear in a certain way. Even though you could say it's the same color, but it had a certain clarity to it, a certain vividness to it, or a certain level that you were not aware of before, but that you were aware of later on. And with certain substances, we can affect consciousness. So that means that consciousness is not fixed. The reason that we see the world a certain way is because our consciousness has been conditioned to perceive the world a certain way. Sometimes in a very, somewhat not exactly clear way, but somewhat touches upon this meaning, where I started to mention it, where someone, because of their consciousness, because of the way their consciousness is conditioned, for the most part, when they encounter someone, they're on guard, they're defensive. There are some people, because of the way their consciousness is conditioned, they're in the offensive. There are some people, because of the way the consciousness is conditioned, they're in fear. So fear, they first greet the world with fear. Why is that? Because the way the consciousness is conditioned. And certain substances can affect consciousness. And some people have experiences of consciousness that are, you could say, that they find to be extremely blissful, but all that is just conditions. Okay. Now, the very consciousness, like the consciousness is conditioned to experience the world a certain way. So this condition, the consciousness conditions what kind of body and what kind of mind it needs for that kind of consciousness. That is why when a consciousness is evolving, it affects the physicality and affects the mind. It affects the mind in terms of how we are reacting emotionally to experiences. It affects how we perceive things, the level of clarity that we perceive things, the level of dullness that we perceive things. Sometimes there is a strong wish to understand something, even though there's this strong wish to understand it, and yet there is the lack of ability to understand it, right? That is because of the condition that the consciousness is involved in. So in order for the mind to have to perceive, to have a different kind of awareness, then we have to create a potential for a different kind of consciousness. Okay? So this consciousness, in order for it to, this is at the level, you could say this is still at the level of potential, right? There's a consciousness that is a potential to perceive the world, to experience the world, to be aware of the world, and it needs a certain kind of body, and it needs a certain kind of mind for it to experience that way, the way it is, have the potential to experience it. And this is the big thing. We have to understand that however we are experiencing the world, it is merely due to the condition that we are, that we have within us to experience the world. And that's very good news, that if we are experiencing the world a certain way, if we are perceiving the world a certain way, that is in a way that we find unpleasant, that we wish that we would not have, that means we can do something about it. We can do something about it. Okay, I'm not talking about having a trip, and that is also something that you can condition. I'm not just talking about having a trip. Okay, well, that lasts a few minutes, or a few And if you're lucky, maybe even a few hours, and then it's gone and you're back to the way it used to be, okay? I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. Yes, you can have those things too, because consciousness is conditional, okay? And that is the reason why material scientists and immaterial scientists seem to be disagreeing with each other, because they're both seeing proof to hold on to their stand, to their conviction. They do see something happening physically in the body when there's a certain kind of conscious experience. And they draw a wrong conclusion that, oh, it is directly related to this chemical. It is directly related to this organ. That's why this experience exists. But they're just connected to each other, okay? Why did that chemical act? What activated that chemical in the first place? What made that organ do what it did so that that experience can be had in a second place? Okay, because of the consciousness behind it. Okay, so this potential to have a certain kind of body, this potential to have a certain kind of mind, are conditioned by the consciousness. It's like we hold a certain view, and that view that we hold will determine how we act in our body and what kind of body we end up with, what we entertain in our mind, and what kind of mental habit that we will develop, what kind of emotions are active, what kind of emotions are inactive, how we relate with our emotions. And all that will require the body to be a certain way, will require the mind to be a certain way, and the mind and the body affect each other. So this kind of potential for a body, this kind of body, this kind of mind, it's out of these things now, when it starts to manifest, then we end up with what are we going to touch in the world? How are we going to touch them? And this is where evolutionary biology comes in. If let's say for now, evolutionary biology is on the right track. Okay, they're not entirely correct, maybe, but they're on the right track. Okay, just for the sake of it, just for tonight, let's accept evolution. Okay, it may not be completely correct, but it's on some right track. Okay, why is it that the dog sees the world a certain way? Because of the body that the dog has, because of the kind of mind that it has. The dog has the potential to experience. So its senses feeds it information for that kind of mind. It feeds it information for what it's supposed to see, to sort of reinforce the world that it's supposed to see, that has the potential to experience. And that's a big thing. That's a very big thing. That means when we simply just rely on our senses, we think that our senses are these perfect instruments that are simply recording the world as it is. When this color comes in, that's exactly what is. My mind is just picking up the color, but rather the color that we are seeing is conditioned by the eye that is seeing the color. And the eye that is seeing the color is conditioned by the kind of consciousness that is prepared to experience a world a certain way. That is why when you mess with the bodily compound, that is, you inject a certain chemical in the body, because of the relationship between the body and the mind, it causes the mind to have a sense of perception that is different. You inject a certain chemical in you, and all of a sudden you're seeing colors you never saw before. Where did those colors come from? Where did those colors come from? How come we were not seeing them before? We simply were not conditioned to experience those kind of colors until we did that intervention with that chemical. Something happens to, you get knocked on the head, then you see stars. Where does those stars come from? Something happened to the form, something happened to the body that conditions the senses so that the senses perceive in a certain way. Okay, so it's not that we have 6 senses that are seeing the world, that are just being there passive, dormant, and then the world is hitting the 5 senses. But rather the senses are in such a way that they to present it in a way that can be more acceptable. You could say the eye as it is takes light and process it according to its capacity to process it, and gives us an image of the world. Because evolutionary biology would say that is what is necessary for us. The reason that we see the colors that we see, because that's what we have conditioned ourselves to need. The reason that we hear what we hear is because that's what we have conditioned ourselves to hear. And in order to hear those things, in order to see those things, we need a certain eye, we need a certain ear, we need a certain skin. And all these are conditioned by the kind of body, the kind of mind that we have. And this is further, and this is coming out of the kind of consciousness we have the potential to the kind of the potential, the awareness potential that we have. Okay. And I will stop at the next one. I was hoping to finish everything, but always will have links in this way. So, and then now, and all this, remember, what's underlying all these experiences is ignorance, a misunderstanding of the nature of reality, an active misunderstanding, a kind of a conviction that is based on wrong understanding about the nature of reality. So let's say, for example, yes, there are colors, and how many colors in the rainbow? 7, right? 8? I don't remember. I forgot. 7 colors or something like that. That sounds like a nice number. 7. Maybe there's more. Maybe there's less. I don't remember. I can't remember at this moment. But let's say that's our eyes are conditioned to see 7, right? But it is said that a butterfly sees more than that. Maybe they see 12. I don't know. Okay. And so how many? So it seems to say, there are a lot of colors out there, but we are limited to the number of colors that we can see. Because that's how we seem to experience the world. There's the world out there, and we have these 5 senses that helps us make contact with the world. So that's what the 6 senses are there. They are the doors through which we make contact with what seems to be the outer world. Because it seems to be that we're making contact with the outer world. This reinforces our ignorance about how we understand the world, the kind of convictions we are making about the world. That the world is indeed out there, because when I shut my eyelids, I don't see colors and shapes anymore. Because if it was inside of me, right? If the colors and shapes were inside of me, I would still see colors and shapes. It seems, right? When I open my eyes, then I see colors and shape. Then it must be that there's something outside that is making contact with my eyes, and then that reinforces the conviction, oh, there's a world out there, and there's me here, and there's a world out there. The thing is, there's an appearance of the world out there, and there's an appearance of me being here. That is the reality. The reality is there's the appearance of the world out there. And that's the big difference then. There is a world out there. Remember, if there is a color that our senses is not picking up, if there is a sense of touch that our sense of touch is not picking up, in a sound that we're not picking up, how is it affecting us? What is it making us do? And don't go into infrared, saying that we don't see infrared, but infrared is affecting us. Okay, it is creating it's creating something to us. Oh, that's a good example. Okay, infrared. Infrared is affecting us, but we do not have right now the capacity to see infrared. Why? Because this is the power to experience light we have a limit, you could say, to the power to which we can perceive what is affecting us. But that means we can do something where we can affect not immediately, not consciously, but when you master meditation, okay, you can see that, okay, where we can make our eyes see infrared. If through evolution, if we create the desire, an intense desire, where we see it's necessary for our evolution to see infrared, that will create the consciousness, that will create the kind of body, that will create the kind of mind, that will create the kind of sense power to be able to see infrared. But there was not a conviction within us of needing to see infrared, because it wasn't something that we were aware of affecting us. Okay. So you have in evolutionary biology, you have animals that can see at night. You have animals that can hear a long distance. That's because they have the consciousness that created the body and the form that's necessary for them to have the kind of senses they have. Now, when we have those kind of senses, those senses make contact with the world. It appears to make contact with the world. And these contacts create a reaction from us, where either we enjoy the contact, that's pleasant feeling, or we do not enjoy the contact, that is unpleasant feeling. Okay. And we don't care one way or another. That's the other kind of feeling. Now, this is where it becomes extremely important. You could say this is where we are now at the level where we can say, it seems that we are at the level of some sort of agency, where we can sort of make a determination to act. This is why feeling was singled out. This is why feeling is considered to be among, you have ignorance, which is doing its job unconsciously. Feeling, in a sense, is doing its job at a somewhat conscious level. This is where we make decisions to react. If something is pleasant, we will react a certain way. If something is unpleasant, we will react a certain way. If something is neutral, we will react a certain way. Now, the thing is, ignorance, again, is telling us that this thing is unpleasant, this thing is pleasant, this thing is neutral. But don't forget, we are conditioned. We are conditioned for this thing because of our body, because of our six senses, that when we make contact, this thing will give us a pleasant feeling. This thing will give us an unpleasant feeling. This thing will be neutral. And this is something that we can all agree on. Something can be pleasant for one person and unpleasant for another. Why is that? Because the pleasant or unpleasantness is conditioned by the person experiencing it. It's not just something happening to the person who's experiencing it, but it's a participation. The person who is experiencing this unpleasantness, the very being of this person has conditioned the experience to be pleasant, the experience to be unpleasant or neutral. And it's not something that happens at the conscious level. That means something that is unpleasant now, as long as it is not dangerously unpleasant. We, with this understanding, we can begin to recondition ourselves so that at least it is neutral, no longer unpleasant. Someone can, the very appearance of someone can be an unpleasant experience in your world, but it doesn't always have to be that way. You can condition yourself so that the person, without doing anything to the person, where this reactivity of pleasantness or unpleasantness doesn't arise within you anymore. Yes, there is the unpleasantness that you have to deal with, or there is the pleasantness that we have to deal with. When it has ripened, then you have to deal with it. Okay. But we can condition it in such a way that we don't even have to deal with the unpleasantness, when there's not even the unpleasantness arising. There was not even the neutrality arising. We can, that is something within our power. And because of the pleasantness, because of the unpleasantness, then we are forced to react towards that. And that's where attachment comes in, desire, craving, or thirst, or initial desire. That's the next link. Initial desire comes from that. When something is pleasant, we become attached to it. When something is unpleasant, we become attached to it in the sense that we want to distance ourselves from it. That is a kind of desire also, a kind of thirst, a kind of wanting. And this wanting is powerful. And it is eventually this wanting that we have to learn to cultivate and nurture to reach enlightenment. Okay? And it is when desire is immature, when desire is something that is happening compulsively, when it is driven eventually by misunderstanding, it will continue to, it is the power that initiates further engagement, further involvement with samsara. Okay. So desire is very, very powerful. It is not simply something to get rid of, but rather something that we need to understand. We need to have a better relationship with. Because you could say conviction is connected in some way in stirring desire. And desire, so at one level there's the desire, which is sort of like the initial feeling that you have. Whether it is pleasant or unpleasant, there's a wanting wanting that arises, either a wanting to continue to or wanting for the experience to continue, or wanting for the experience to stop. And because we want the experience to continue, then we act. Or because we want the experience to stop, then we act. When we are at the level, when we are acting, then the desire has become grasping. And here there's a conviction in there also. So there is a conviction further strengthened by the desire. That is, I'm talking about what you really want kind of desire, not superficial desire, what you really want. In fact, I will even say, whatever you have, we brought it, whether it is something that you don't want, but whatever you end up having in your life, desire helped you, was the fuel that brought it into your life. Okay, so desire is very powerful. Desire, you could say, is the fuel of creation. So when desire is guided by ignorance, by misunderstanding, it creates suffering. Or you could say it creates a dysfunctional way of relating with our experiences, where we grasp or we are convinced that the unpleasant feeling or the pleasant feeling is not really conditioned by my continuum, but rather it is definitely coming from outside. Then there's a grasping. And then when it becomes strong desire, that's when it's now at the level that it will definitely be create something. It will definitely be that, it will definitely be the thing that bring into existence something. Okay. So there's initial desire, which is almost uncontrollable, as an uncontrollable response to having an experience of that is pleasant or unpleasant. But if we can, at this level, not perpetuate the misunderstanding about what is happening, where we can begin to simply say, my unpleasantness is conditional. It doesn't mean that this thing is not right now unpleasant, but right now there is something within me, when it interacts with this thing, because of this two coming together, it creates this feeling of unpleasantness. It creates this feeling of pleasantness. If we don't have this happening as we are experiencing this wish to run away from it, this wish to stop it, this wish to hold on to it, this wish for it to continue, then it will strengthen conviction. And when it strengthens conviction, it becomes grasping. Now we definitely will do something to try to stop it, definitely do something to try to make the experience continue. Where this has become, has arrived at the level where we were in danger of dependency. Okay. And this dependency, it's what I'm referring to as this dependency, is a kind of uncontrolled reactivity, uncontrolled reactivity, where we find ourselves, you could even say, wanting things at the surface. We may say, this is not good for me, and yet we find ourselves wanting it. We may even witness to some degree that when we get this thing that we want, it's harming us. It's harming our minds, it's harming our body, it's harming our health, it's harming our relationship. We witness that. And there's a surface wanting to no longer have this want. But unfortunately, it's now at the level of automatic reactivity. We find ourselves wanting it nonetheless. Okay. And that will definitely drive, that definitely is a very painful experience to have, where you find yourself wanting something that you know you should not want, and yet there you are wanting it. That is wanting in a sense of you feel driven to encounter something, driven to have an experience, driven to do something, to take something, to encounter something. And you can't stop yourself. And because this drive has taken control, it's making you act, it's making you talk, it's making you manipulate other people, it's making you manipulate your own self, it's making you arrive at certain kinds of superficial convictions so that you can encounter it. It's not that bad, go ahead. That kind of voice within you, right? And when we are at the level of experiencing this kind of grasping, if we understand, this uncontrollable wanting that I have, that I can't stop, that is driving me to get stuff, even though I don't want it, it too is conditioned. It is conditioned by when I am having an experience, I am not allowing myself to be aware of how I am, the kind of conclusions that I'm drawing, the kind of conclusions that I'm making about the experience that I'm having. I'm not allowing myself to be aware of that. I'm not present. I'm not fully present with what's going on. Okay? It's not that we consciously say, let me now make a conscious conviction about this unpleasant experience, then we have a conviction. No, at the moment of having an unpleasant experience, the mechanism of drawing a conclusion is already on its way. It's already there, it's already present, it's already in motion. At first, we simply have to be aware of it, and that will lessen it so that it doesn't become grasping, where we find ourselves in the pain of wanting things that we should not want. Or sometimes we find ourselves in the pain of not wanting something that we should want. You know, the kind of wanting that makes you act, we want to have that, and yet we do not have it. Why is that? Because we have not yet established the condition to have that. And because it is something that is conditional, then all you have to do is just set the conditions in place. And when this very strong desire is present, then it definitely produces the seed, you could say, for an experience to definitely happen. It gives birth to the next stage, where it's now you understand why the 10th link is called mature karma. So that which activates the potential to actually manifest is a maturing, is grasping. And it is said that's what happens at death. There's grasping for new existence. And this grasping for new existence, you could say, grabs any potential and then feeds that potential, puts fire in that potential, and then makes that and matures the potential. That's mature karma. It matures karma. This term is kind of vague to understand. Bhava. It means to be, but you can sort of understand it as conception. Something is conceived, that is, it has been brought into a stage where it's developing into, where it will eventually develop into something, will eventually develop into a definite thing. Okay. That's now the potential, the immature karma, which is no longer a potential, but rather fired upon by grasping, and being cooked nicely by grasping, now the potential will mature. That is definitely a definite experience will come into being. And when this experience comes into being, that's the 11th link, that's birth. And when it is, and we have to consider this also something that is happening in 3 times, past, present, and future, but not necessarily past life, not necessarily present life, not necessarily future life, but rather in this very life, there is past, the past of this life, the present of this life, and the future of this life. Okay, so these are occurring or cycling all the time, where they project into future life, projected from past life, and even in our present life, what we've done in the past is propelled into an experience that we are having right now. And how we respond to the experience that we have right now will determine the experience that we will have in the future, tomorrow, next year, okay? And it's because that the possibility of having these experiences that where we can witness them gives us hope, where the 12 links aren't simply ideas that we will never be able to fully experience, but we can witness them taking place in our very life. And the last link, of course, it is because of the 12th link, it's because that we are because of the 11th link, something comes into birth. Because it is conditioned, the very nature of it being conditioned leads to it eventually, those conditions losing power, and eventually the birth itself begins to lose its power to be birth. And as it is losing its power to be birth, that itself is the 12th link, aging, decay, and eventually it will come to an end. And it is in the aging, the decay, and the death, because of our dysfunctional response to this experience, we experience suffering. Aging, decay, and death are not by nature things to produce suffering, but rather our dysfunctional response to them, our ignorant understanding of this process creates suffering, where we misunderstand all those things, all those links, all those parts, all the other links. Because we misunderstand them, we actively misunderstand them, we continue this process where aging, decay, and death become for us a condition for suffering. But aging, decay, and death is good news in a sense also. That means the suffering itself is aging. The suffering itself is decaying. Suffering itself can come to death. But if we continue to apply our misunderstanding to this process, then strong grasping will come, tana, very, 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 a deep fear of annihilation, a deep grasping to continue to exist, not even fully understanding this, how existence is taking place in the first place, will recreate the whole process again. Okay, so that was a very fast exposition on how all the 12 links are connected to each other, from 1 to 12. And don't make this into some abstract where, the whole of life, but rather whatever experience that you have at the very moment, very moment that the experience is in the container of present awareness, present experience, understand all these things are connected to it. That this experience is the result of coming together of various conditions. And the thing to take from it also is, I am, in a way, participating in this experience. And because I am participating in this experience, there's a way I can participate where the experience can change. Okay. Instead of giving birth to an experience, to an experience that has all kinds of problems with it, we can give birth to an experience that is blissful and wonderful. Okay. So that is what you might call the somewhat boring way, and thank you for sticking with it, the boring way of presenting the 12 links. And then next time we go into some of the exciting ways of presenting the 12 links, how the 12 links are in Tantra, how these very 12 links can be seen in a way that is gospel, that is good news. In fact, when there is there is a kind of enlightenment result called pratyeka Buddha. Pratyeka Buddha means self-made, self-enlightened. That means you are so spiritually powerful that you are born into a life where you don't need a direct guru to guide you to enlightenment, because you've had so many gurus in so many past lives. The power of the teaching and your realization is still with you in that life, that you can make use of it to give rise to your own enlightenment. Not highest enlightenment. Highest enlightenment always need a guru. But the enlightenment was called personal enlightenment, personal liberation. And all you have to do is to enter into deep meditation and unravel the 12 links, see how they pertain to your own existence. And through this meditation alone, you will reach your personal liberation. And also, when we are plagued with the disease of doubting, where doubt is a disease in our experience, we find ourselves always doubting, and it's an unpleasant experience. Not just that you doubt this, you doubt that, and you don't know it, and you can do something about it, but rather doubting is the strongest klesha, strongest afflictive emotion for you. Then making your mind go through the 12 links will help you be free of this disease, this unpleasantness of experiencing doubt. Okay, so that's the lowest thing. When you really focus on it, take it as something for your mind to go through. Make this your vipassana. How in your own experience there is ignorance. When you see how you are seeing things wrongly, the conviction that are driving your dysfunction, how they are creating potentials, the kind of potentials that they've created, and how they condition eventually how you experience the world and the kind of world that you find yourself in. Okay, then you can build the conviction built on wisdom, the wisdom of seeing these things, where you eventually break this wheel and you become an arahat, a destroyer of the wheel. Okay, all right, and as usual, we have only very limited time. So any questions before we close?
Yes. You said the ignorant conviction creates the second link, the the karma. You said it can create virtuous karma or unvirtuous karma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how you create rather one or the other.
Oh yeah. Remember, virtuous karma is not, when we think of virtuous karma, we think of somehow it's connected to enlightenment, right? But virtue here means the karma that you do that gives you a pleasant experience in samsara. Like to be born as a god, for example, you need virtuous karma for that.
Okay, so we are still in samsara anyway.
Still in samsara. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So in relation to that. And that's and that's how the term virtue is being used here. And of course, virtue can also be connected to the kinds of actions that eventually lead to enlightenment. But in this case, virtue means when it is driven by ignorance. Right?
So this virtue
is you do something that is that benefits someone. Like you do an act of charity, but there's some ignorance connected to that. That is a virtue. And then it will ripen into some pleasant experience. Okay. Whatever that pleasant experience may be. Okay. Being born as an angel, being born as somebody with little problems. So those are the results of virtue.
So it's still impure karma.
Still impure karma, yeah. Yeah, putting that impure is a nice adjective. Impure, immature karma. Impure means not connected with wisdom. Okay.
Last question: How do I create the conviction that I am Vajrasattva, the subconscious conviction?
That comes with practice.
Okay.
You simply have to keep saying it, and eventually it will sink in. Okay. And as you are saying it, watch out for the conviction that says, "You're not. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll do our closing meditation. So bring yourself to a posture that you find conducive to meditation. And when in that very posture, you begin to feel that you are touching begin to touch the signs of arising, the state of meditation arising in the body, the calm, the pleasantness, in the breath, calming, the pleasantness, in the mind, the calming, the pleasantness, the clarity, the vividness, luminosity, the sense of focus. Rejoice. And we can reconnect with these experiences by simply remembering. The last time I was meditating, I was in deep meditation, my body was like this. And by the mere recalling, you begin to re-experience it in the body, in the breath, in the mind. And as soon as you make a sense of contact with these experiences, take a nice deep breath to sort of stabilize them through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. In through the mouth, breathe out. And as you breathe out, notice the signs having enhanced to some degree. Rejoice in the body, in the breath, in the mind. And this is to give us the conviction, I am in meditation. I am witnessing the signs that I am. And this conviction will strengthen the meditation. And it will undermine the conviction that that is opposing to it, because you're witnessing the signs. Now that you're in the sign, tell yourself, bring the sense of us, me. What makes me? All these different parts, left hand, left foot, right foot, head, eye, and how all these different parts somehow constitute me, us, and how there is this impulse for any one of these parts to go to help another part without thinking I'm helping another, but rather I'm helping me, I'm helping us. So have that sense of us, have that sense of readiness. Now see all of us here tonight, gathering in whatever space you find yourself in a circle. And once you see that circle, have a sense of it. And then now bring the sense of us to all of us. We are parts of an us, which is this group. And you can bring that sense of us by thinking of someone looking at all of us sitting together. Look at them, and they're looking at a unit. And then feel yourself as part of that unit. And feel that sense of that readiness to help another, just like your right hand is ready to help the left. And because of that sense of us, there's a manifestation of that sense of us appearing in the very center as a bright light. And connected to that bright light, there's this ray of light coming from that center to each one of our hearts. And there's a communication of light going back and forth. We strengthen us strengthens me strengthen us strengthens me. And as this convictions get stronger and stronger, that light in the center begins to expand, becoming brighter and bigger, brighter and bigger. And as it expands, it begins to absorb unto itself whatever it touches. And as it absorbs into itself whatever it touches, we include that in a sense of us, until we are all just this big, bright ball of light, continuing to expand. And it includes everything in our room, everything in our house, everyone in the house, all the pets. And it continues to expand until it expands through the neighborhood, through your state, through your country, through the entire world. Now everything is absorbed in that light. And if you have the realistic capacity in a palpable way to feel it, you can continue to expand it, the entire solar system, all of the universe. But if the earth is enough for you, palpably that is more real for you, stay with the earth and feel all those different parts that is making us. The rivers, that's us. The mountains, the trees, the sky, the clouds, the ground, the fish, the flying things, the walking things, your neighbor. Everyone is us. And you feel that impulse ready to go to the aid of the ocean, because that's me, that's us. Ready to go to the aid of the mountain, the sky, the clouds, because that's us. Ready to act in such a way, in the same way you act in such a way to preserve the health of self. Now that self has expanded and you feel ready to act, to preserve all that is the self right now. And keeping the sense of readiness, the sense of conviction of us, no longer needs to see this ball of light. Then it begins to shrink, But as it shrinks, it leaves a shimmer of itself onto whatever it had absorbed, until again it comes right in the very center of our group, of our circle, and we are shimmering. There's a glow that is left in us, outside of us. That sense of us is still with us. And with that conviction, that manifestation of that ball of presence now splits into rays of light that are absorbed into each one of us. And with that, we feel, when I take care of me sincerely, I am taking care of all of us. And when I take care of all of us sincerely, I am also taking care of me. And be ready to come out of the meditation, feeling sort of energy of the meditation, dedicated to whatever concerns you may have, whether it's personal, whether it's for someone you know, for a community somewhere. Gyawa di kyokan sunam yeshe tsogzo shin sunam yeshe lechu tamba kunye topa sho. Again, go back to just the space of the meditation. Feel the calm, the pleasantness. Feel the clarity, feel the radiance, feel the focus, rejoice. Knowing that, I am in meditation. Now I'm making the conscious decision to arise from it. And with that conscious decision, take a nice deep breath that you feel in through the nose, out the mouth. And deliberately, consciously reconnect with your immediate surroundings through your sense of touch. Be aware of the temperature, the feel of the clothing, your cushion, through your sense of hearing, the sounds close, the sounds far, through your sense of sight. Notice colors again, notice shapes again, notice light, shadows. Thank you very much. Have a very pleasant rest of your evening.